So after years and years, Mojang finally added the copper golem. Come on, we all know it was the best one out of the three. And I genuinely like it. It's charming, it sorts your chests, it wanders your base, it does exactly what a small, helpful, obedient servant, automaton, should do. And also, it's very cute. Its head turns, it has these little robot noises, which means I just couldn't leave it alone. I think they took this long because they were afraid of what I could turn it into. And I think I understand it now. Because when I first walked into what I built during testing, I got about 15 seconds in before the lights went out and something started walking in the corridor behind me. I made it into something that could genuinely stand side by side against the warden. So this is what I turned it into. The body is taller, heavier, and the oxidation is deep and uneven. It looks like corrosion that has been accumulating for a very, very long time with nobody to stop it. And then, for the most important part, I gave it arms. The right arm has a giant drill which rotates and will become very, very important later. The right arm looks normal with a few fingers, and you may think, oh okay, that's just an arm, but can actually transform into a cannon. And then I added these menacing red glowing Terminator eyes, and one of them is very special because it's going to become a scanner later on. So now that we have the new, or should I say really ancient copper golem, I had to find a cool name for it. So I decided to call it the Overseer, because it's going to match with its role, which means it needs a place to oversee. A new structure that would be appropriate to house such entity. If something like that exists, it wouldn't be out here, it would be buried somewhere. And this structure is called the Abandoned Works. It's a new structure based on the trial chambers. Similar copper structure, similar general maze-shaped design, except it's way simpler and it's not focused on combat, but it's focused on exploration. And it's an ancient industrial complex, and everything in here has been running without maintenance for a very, very long time. The walls are completely oxidized, the floors have these uneven color palettes of irregular blocks and materials, the corridors branch off into dead ends and flooded rooms, and spaces that used to mean something and now don't. It's not a dungeon, it's not a fighting challenge, and there's not really a loot room waiting at the end of the corridor, although there are chests and barrels with some useful equipment. The facility doesn't know you're here to win. It does not have any shiny locked chests. One special block that I added was the defective copper bulbs. It's a variation that does not stay on frequently. It flickers all the time and releases these sparks. It's failing to give off full light, and it gives a very, very eerie abandoned vibe to this place. And light is probably the most important aspect of this facility. The second special block I added are these steam launchers. These are very useful trap-like blocks, because whenever the player walks over them, they get launched very high up with an explosion of steam, which is quite useful if you pair it with a mace. The facility is quite complex and contains a large number of unique rooms, each one hinting at the work's past. The sump is a massive octagonal room used to dispose of toxic materials. The core, suspended in the center, there is a large mass of copper blocks, magma and lava. The vents are large tube-shaped sections made out of iron bars and copper, containing large fan-like structures in the center. The assembly line, a room with a conveyor belt for mass-producing automatons. And there are many, many others. Upon entering an abandoned works, this is the first thing you'll notice. Everything in here is extremely dark from the moment you walk in. It's almost impossible to navigate. All you hear are the eerie ambient sounds of the ancient corroded metal and the chains swinging slowly. So how do you get to see things? This is when I had to think about a very, very smart new mechanic that would be very scary. So I added the copper boilers. It's a new block special to the abandoned works. They are built into the facility itself, and they are the only reason why any of the lights can be turned on at all. The facility's entire lamp system runs off of them. Keep them fed with coal and the lights stay on. It is extremely important you do so. When the lights are on, this is a grace period you have to explore. Collect resources comfortably. Sounds simple, right? But here's what makes it not simple. Because the boilers are spread out. Some are in rooms you haven't found yet, some are in corridors that were lit when you came through and now won't be when you come back. Make sure you always have a clean path towards your nearest boiler, because the facility is way bigger than you may think, and coal doesn't last forever. The coal runs dry very, very fast, and the moment the boiler stops working, the darkness means you weren't paying attention enough. And now, something knows about that. Before we get to the main event, the facility isn't empty. Yes, all of the living people who used to be in here are now long gone, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a few strange inhabitants. And I felt like this place just has way too much potential to just be completely empty. So I decided to add a few special mobs. These are the prototypes. Failed early versions of the copper golem, too small, Too broken to be functional as a security or to do anything useful really. They have worked so much in the prime days that their arms have fallen off, but they are still running, still doing something. They don't attack, they just watch the player at a safe distance and then skitter away when you get close. They move when you're not looking. I find them kind of cute. Just the little guy is curious to know what the player is doing, but I would be lying if I said they aren't at least a little creepy. Okay, so imagine you're walking down a corridor and then you notice a shadow on the floor. This is the sludge. I'm gonna be honest, the first 3 times I stepped into one of these, I genuinely got scared. I don't know why, but they're so hard to see and they appear so suddenly. And to my measurements, this is a success. But yeah, they're kind of freaky. It looks exactly like a shadow. It sits in doorways, sits at the bottom of staircases, exactly on the spot you're going to step on when you're running from something and not looking at the floor. It's stationary, it's silent, and patient in a way that only something with no brain and nothing else going on for it can be. You step on while the overseer's chasing you, and well, you'll figure it out. I'm not going to spoil. And last, the beeper. The beeper doesn't explode. It's not a combat mob. It does resemble a creeper though. It is unknown what the builders of this place were thinking of when they were designing this entity. It sits around corners as a formless inanimate object, but if the player reaches its vicinity, it quickly starts to reassemble itself. And then, it starts beeping very loudly like an emergency warning system. Now you get why it's called beeper, eh? Sorry, I'm kind of proud of this name. Beeper, creeper, you know. Anyway, it's a mechanical siren that reaches every corridor simultaneously, and the overseer, whatever it is in the facility, will be immediately notified of it. You only have a few seconds before it reaches your location. And now back to our main attraction. This is the overseer. Or, this is what the overseer looks like when it has nothing to do. And it's been like this for a while. Head down, beam dark, drill low, joint seized up with oxidation. It looks less like a security system and more like a forgotten piece of equipment that someone meant to come back for, and nobody ever did. Whatever purpose this thing was originally designed for, it's been running the same facility alone for so long that the two things aren't really separable anymore. The facility is its purpose. And here's what that teaches you very quickly. The overseer and the boiler system are completely connected. While the lights are on, and while the boilers are fed and the lamps are running, it stays exactly like this. Dormant, completely deactivated. The lights are your only safety. This is your lifeline. The difference between the overseer being a piece of junk and this. The moment the boilers run out of energy and the lights die, the overseer wakes up from its century-long slumber, making a piercing loud sound that the player can hear from very, very far away, alerting you that you're now in immediate danger. It doesn't know you're there yet though. It takes long, methodical sweeps through the facility, the drill arm idle, moving through the dark like it owns every inch of it. The sound alone is something else I'm very proud of. Those metallic clank-like footsteps carry through the halls. You'll always roughly know where it is by the sound of it. There's a major difference between the overseer and the normal mobs however, because it doesn't aggro at you all the time. And remember what I said about the eye? Yeah, the eye is a scanner. Sometimes it uses it to sweep while the overseer is active, shooting a red beam scanning the environment. There are a few modes of scanning: direct, sweep, and 360, where its head will rotate fully, scanning the entire place. If the player gets caught by the beam, it locks, holds for a second, and then begins its pursuit. It is extremely loud, and I made it so the overseer has an advantage on straight corridors, because if it detects the player is at least 5 to 8 blocks of distance in a straight line, the overseer will perform a quick forward dash, which means using corners and turns to your advantage will be very, very helpful. And you might want to attack it, but this is fruitless, as the overseer has an impenetrable energy barrier protecting it from any hits. And you also might think that you're smart and say, oh, I'll just block it, buy myself some time, put something solid between me and whatever this thing is. You just wasted your time, because the drill, it's not just a weapon, it's an industrial equipment that got repurposed, and it does not distinguish between the copper ore veins you use to mine to whatever is on its way. It will destroy any block that it detects as a barrier, keeping it away from you. Try to block its route and it will make a new one. So you better find a boiler and keep it full at all times. Now let's get back to the boilers for a moment. Because they run clean on coal, but coal runs out very fast, which means you have a very short period of time to explore, and going back and forth constantly can be kind of annoying. So they also accept redstone. Force enough redstone into the boilers and the facility's power system goes beyond what it was built to handle, keeping the lights on for very, very long, so this way you can explore way more comfortably without any concern at all, right? 5 redstones, 1 boiler. The lamp starts sparkling, the steam starts bursting out of the walls. You realize you've just accelerated the total decay of the facility. You have overcharged the system so much and caused permanent blackout, and the Overseer registers the surge. Do this with enough boilers and the damage compounds. You are filling the Overseer with so much energy, its drill arm and body starts fracturing from the inside, from its own power eating itself, and then it collapses and transforms into something else. Extremely damaged and grotesque. The Overseer is still alive and kicking, however, but now it entered the emergency mode. It no longer needs to use a red beam to register movement. It is now aggressive to anything that moves on its vicinity. And now, there's no more lights to keep you safe. This is the worst part of the facility, because the rules have changed and you don't know yet how they work. The damage form doesn't patrol like before, it doesn't even scan. The prototypes are skittering away from it, like they recognize something extremely dangerous in the new form, like an ancient threat that has just been awoken. The damaged Overseer does not pursue the player like before. It doesn't even perform a full chase, it can only walk in bursts of quick movements due to its defective body. It also can no longer use the drill, so it takes a more stalker-like approach, making almost no noise and hiding behind corners in an elevated platform, and doing ambush-like attacks. If you manage to survive the Overseer's more deadly form, at some point you may end up stumbling upon into this very massive and major part of the structure. This place looks like a giant factory complex, big enough for something terrible to happen. Oh, that was pretty tough, but here we got at the center, and there's not really a whole lot, but there... What? This is the Overseer's boss form. Somehow, still functioning and utilizing scraps found in the abandoned works, it has managed to partially build itself. The concentrated beam locks your last position and fires. Doesn't track perfectly, but it deals devastating damage if you stay on it. The gravity pull is one that will get you all the time. It yanks you off the ground, holds you, and then slams you down with full force. And finally, the flamethrower. It punishes you for standing still. Wide 360-degree arc, it commits to a general area where you're standing and lets the fire handle the rest. You notice that there are many boilers present in this area. 5 redstone in one boiler during the fight triggers an overload. The Overseer locks up and his energy shield is finally down. That's your window to attack it as much as you can. This is the only chance you have until you get to the next one. Oh, the missile attack is the worst. The Overseer has one last trick. It does not concern with itself, it just wanted to keep you from leaving, as it activated its self-destruction protocol. I thought I wouldn't be able to escape on this one. Well, thankfully I survived to continue to making more videos. So, if you liked it, leave a comment, a like, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.